The decision by government to close some of the country's busy beaches in the wake of the COVID-19 second wave is coming under intense legal scrutiny. The organisation AfriForum is challenging the revised lockdown level 1 regulations. The Democratic Alliance also threatening to approach the courts. The lobby group AfriForum believes the measures are unconstitutional. I want to test that with legal scholar from UCT, Professor Pierre. Good afternoon to you and welcome. What does the law say, Pierre, if anything, about constitutionality in beaches?
Yes, well, the law obviously doesn't say directly anything about it. As I understand it, AfriForum said in the press statement that it's discriminatory. That is not clear why they would make that argument, because discrimination is based on one of the grounds like race, sex, gender, religion. This distinction here is clearly not based on those. So I don't think that the discrimination argument will work. And maybe slightly more plausible is the fact that it is a limitation of freedom of movement in the limited way that one is not allowed to move onto the beach. That is a limitation. So the question will be, is that justifiable, given the importance of stopping COVID, balanced against the impact that this will have not on the economy, but on the right to freedom of movement. So the arguments, the economic arguments are not really, they are policy arguments, they are not really legal arguments. So although it's always possible, I would be a little bit surprised if the courts agree with the arguments by AfriForum in this case.
I'm seeing the smile on your face. I'm sensing you think this really is a long shot.
You know, the courts have been very unpredictable with the lockdown regulations, being very strict and also being very lenient, so it's very difficult to predict. But it's going to be an uphill battle. It's not a foregone conclusion that they will win the case, because it appears, from what they say in their press release at least, that the law is not on their side.
Movement is being limited. Of that, there can be no argument. How does government defend this?
Well, this is the real problem, is that we haven't really had very good explanation and a justification for this. What the court process might be helpful with is to get the government to explain what it is doing, because to defend this, they will have to show that there is a purpose behind it, and they have to show what that purpose is. So at the moment, the only thing I've heard is that they said if many people go onto a beach, it is overcrowded and there's possibility of COVID spreading, and it's not possible to regulate how many people get on the beach. Just the state is not capable enough of doing that. So that is the argument, I think.
It's also interesting to watch, and I don't know whether I'm over-extrapolating this slightly, but there's an interesting line, maybe has a wider implication, that interesting line between public safety, as you've referenced, on the one side, and maybe state overreach on the other.
Yes, so the question here is, there is that balance. So people are going to fight about where the balance must be struck. That's what makes it more difficult from a legal perspective, because the courts are not supposed to get involved in policy decisions. The court has often said whether we think this is a wise thing to do or whether the government is being idiotic, that's not the test. The test is whether one of the rights in the Constitution or some rationality principle have been flouted. And that's slightly different from the policy choices and whether the government is doing this and why are they doing this, but they're not closing bars, which is probably far more dangerous, and so on and so on.
Pierre, I'll let you go and investigate that siren in the background. From the University of Cape Town, legal scholar Professor Pierre. This is